Greg from Andover again. People call us all the time and ask us when students should be taking the SAT. There are plenty of recommendations out there and many differences in opinion. Generally, and this differs for athletes, for example, but for the general student, junior year is obviously the time to be starting to take the SAT. Usually, in October of junior year, students are taking the PSAT, which counts for nothing other than that National Merit Scholarship. It's just a good practice test. We recommend that juniors start taking their first SAT in January of their junior year. There are several reasons for that. The SAT is a test that is offered roughly once a month throughout the school year. It is not offered over the summer. And it is a test that is, quote unquote, released only 3 times a year. October, January, and May. Those 3 SAT dates are the dates in which the SAT is released, meaning you can actually get the test back with your scores 5 weeks later. That's a service called the Question and Answer Service, also known as the QAS. And many people are unaware that other test dates do not offer that service. So if you were to take the SAT in March, for example, you get your scores, but that's it. We don't know which questions in particular you missed and so on, or specifically what that question was about. So we recommend the January as the first junior year test because it's released. Another reason we recommend January is the tendency for juniors who are in the regular level of mathematics is that they are taking Algebra 2 in their junior year. The SAT in theory does cover Algebra 2. The truth of the matter is the SAT covers the first few months of Algebra 2. It only uses about 4 or 5 questions in Algebra 2. So students who are in Algebra 2 their junior year are learning some of the material they will need for the SAT. Come January, they will have been through all of the material that they need in order to do well on the SAT. So January is late enough in the year for students who are studying Algebra 2 to actually be able to take the SAT. Another advantage of the January test is that it's early enough in the year so that if something happens to you on the way to the test, you get a flat tire, for example, or you didn't sleep well and decide you're just not ready, well, you have plenty of more chances. You can take it again in March, you can take it in May, in June, and then a few chances in the fall of senior year. So January provides that breathing room so that if things don't go as planned, you can just walk out of the test, or you can just turn around and go home before you even get there. So January is a good time to plan for those reasons. Now, some people say, well, you should take the March test because the January test is harder, or scores aren't as high in the January test. If anybody tries to give you an excuse for one test over another by telling you that a test is easier, or you're competing against only the brightest students in one test date over another, so you shouldn't take it then, they're lying to you. The truth is, it's a standardized test, meaning scores cannot vary. The test itself cannot vary. So, whether March, January, or May, it doesn't actually matter for your scores which test date you use. It's more a matter of timing. Now, some people tell me that they don't like the idea of taking the test in January because it's in the middle of midterm exams. And although that's true, you should keep in mind a few things. First of all, being in exam mode is an advantage for taking the SAT. So while some students or some parents might be afraid that it's going to be extra unnecessary stress, the truth of the matter is the students are already in test-taking mode. So adding one more test isn't that much. The other aspect of it is test preparation should be started a month or more before the test itself, and therefore should not take away from exam studying. In fact, most exams, midterm academic exams, are the week before the SAT. In that week, students should only be studying vocabulary. They should have been through a course and should not need to do very much studying for the SAT, because at this point they should be comfortable with how to take the test, and they should know through practice tests roughly where they're going to be scoring on that January testing. Anyway, so again, the arguments against taking the January test are in most cases invalid. And again, if people tell you, oh, it's because you're competing against so-and-so, it's not a true argument. The main reason the March test tends to be recommended over the January test is because guidance counselors tend to be overwhelmed and in some cases even lazy. So they would rather juniors start taking their SATs in March because they're still finishing up all the work they had with seniors who sent in their applications. So they assume that if they advise parents to take the SAT or to have their students, their children take the SAT in January, that the process for the guidance counselors, that the process for them, or for the juniors, is going to start earlier. And they're trying to avoid that because, yes, they are overwhelmed and overworked. So, January should be the first SAT to be aimed for. Then, May would be an ideal time for an eventual second test. That leaves the month of June, or the June test date, open for SAT-2s if they're required. I would recommend skipping the March SAT altogether. I find it unnecessary. It's too close to the January test to actually receive the paper version of the test from January to review. And it's too close to the May test to give you any time to prepare between March and May. So March should be used for college visits and spring break and nothing else. January should be the first SAT of junior year. May should be the second SAT of junior year. And June should be SAT-2s. And if needed, a third SAT can be taken in October of senior year. This can be done even for students who are applying early. Early application deadlines tend to be November 1st or 15th, and colleges will wait for scores from the October and even the November SAT dates. So seniors who are applying early have up to 2 more chances to take the SAT or SAT-2s. And if they're applying regular decision, they actually have 3 more chances because there's a December SAT date. Another aspect that students tend to ask regarding the May SAT is the fact that the May SAT date is in the middle of AP exams. If that is the case, specifically for APs such as US history or biology, students may want to consider disregarding my advice and switching the May and June test dates. Therefore, they would be taking SAT-2s in US history and in biology during the May SAT date, and then they would take their second SAT in June. The reason we recommend this for students in AP courses is that AP courses cover all of the material that is covered on SAT-2s, and therefore preparing for the APs should be preparing them for SAT-2s. That is not to say that students should walk into the SAT-2s blind. They should take practice tests before going in on that Saturday. So even if they're an AP, it does not mean that they will do well on the SAT-2. It's not uncommon for students to do well in AP US history, but not to do well in the SAT-2s. You must be sure and take a practice test before. If you have any further questions, please visit our website at AndoverCollegePrep.com. Send us an email, info@AndoverCollegePrep.com, or give us a call, 203-226-6211. Thank you.